Welcome to First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, the birthplace of congregational humanism. We carry on that tradition of free thought today, dedicated to promoting a free search for truth, meaning, and justice. Our web address is firstunitarian.org. I'm David Breeden, Senior Minister. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I'm the Reverend Jim Fody. I'm one of the assistant ministers here, and I welcome you to the online Sunday Assembly of the First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis for November 7th, 2021. Whether you're a new viewer or have been part of FUS for a long time, we're glad you're here with us today as part of our Unitarian Universalist humanist community. And as part of keeping our community connected, we invite everyone to make use of the chat during Assembly. And immediately after Assembly, everyone is invited to our Zoom coffee hour. The link to coffee hour will be available in the chat, and it's also in your most recent emails from FUS. Please stop by this online social time for as little or as long as you like. And although the local COVID numbers mean that our building remains closed to large gatherings, there's still a lot going on in our congregational community. Be sure to check the Friday update email or peruse the calendar on the FUS website to explore the options. One of those options is happening today at 4 p.m. That's when we're having another FUS happy hour in the beer garden at Utah Brewing in North Minneapolis. Join us as we welcome the early sunset among friendly faces. Our assembly theme for November is Holding History, and so we open this month with this thought from the UU minister, the Reverend Tania Marquez. The voices of those who will be call us, a reminder of who we need to be. In the weaving of our story to the web of life, we must remember that we must not cut strings, for there are others coming after us. Others with tender hearts and strong wills, with creative determination. Those who will live in the house of tomorrow. Their vision escapes us, yet we are called to prepare the road, to leave behind possibility, and foundations upon which they'll build a better tomorrow. We are called to create new opportunities. Come, let us gather in community. Each week when we gather, we share one of our 7 Unitarian Universalist principles or one of the aspirations of First Unitarian Society. And this morning we light the chalice, remembering the FUS aspiration to live joyfully and ethically, in loving, reverent relationship with humanity and nature. Now please join me in the reciting of our congregational covenant. Love is the spirit of this place, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning, friends. I'm Allison Wyeth, Director of Religious Education for First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis. I'd like to invite our young ones and anyone who likes a good story to settle in for our time for all ages. This Thursday, November 11th, will be Veterans Day. Every year, we mark this day in honor of the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918. That signaled the end of World War I. At first, the commemoration was called Armistice Day and honored veterans of World War I. But in later years, the name was changed to Veterans Day to recognize those who served in other wars as well. The focus of the day is to honor and remember those who served, but also to rededicate ourselves to world peace so that future generations may not have to know war at all. Today, we have a lovely story to bring life to this important day. Brave, Proud as a Peacock, Brave as a Lion, by Jane Barclay. My papa was a soldier. When he was 17 years old, he lied about his age so he could join the army and fight for our country in the war. I'm on his bed studying a picture of him in his uniform. His hair is too short, and his pants are too long. Papa, I ask him, why did you lie about your age? Well, he says, so many other boys were joining, and I didn't want to be left behind. I couldn't wait to put on that uniform. As soon as I did, I felt proud as a peacock. Proud as a peacock, I ask. Proud as that, he answers. He struts across the floor with his chest puffed out and his belly pulled in. He stops in front of the mirror and combs his hair. He smiles at the reflection, but beneath my papa's smile, I see the serious young man in the photograph. My papa crossed the ocean. He said goodbye to his mom and dad and his sweetheart Betty. He promised to write them letters every week. Papa, I ask him, weren't you lonely? Sometimes I was, he says, but so was everybody else. Besides, my best friend Stuart was with me. Most of the time, we were busy as beavers. Busy as beavers, I ask. Busy as that, he answers. He whistles as he irons his collar. He tucks in his shirt tails and rubs the polishing cloth across his shoes until they shine like new. He reaches in a drawer for a pair of socks, and I glimpse a bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon. He smiles as he touches it with his fingers. But beneath my papa's smile, I know he's missing Grandma Betty. My papa was a hero. There were guns and fire and smoke. He crawled on his belly through the noise and the mud and pulled 3 men to safety. The army gave him a special medal that he keeps in a leather case. Papa, weren't you scared? When I was a lad, he says, I thought I wasn't afraid of anything. Then when something frightening did happen, I pretended to be brave as a lion. Brave as a lion, I ask. Brave as that, he answers. I help him fasten his medal on his blazer. Sometimes my papa's hands shake, so he needs to borrow mine. He smiles as he gives me a poppy to pin on my jacket. He looks very proud. But beneath my papa's smile, I hear the bad dream that woke him in the night. My papa marches in the parade. The crowd cheers and claps as the veterans go by. Some are young, some are old, some sit in wheelchairs, and some walk past, holding on to others. I stand at attention. The music stops, and there is a minute of silence. I am quiet as a mouse, as quiet as that. My papa lays a wreath. He carefully places it at the base of the monument. Attached is a card that reads, "In loving memory of Stuart David Adams, 1923 to 1944. My papa salutes. Then he steps back and dabs his eyes with his handkerchief. He puts his hand over his heart. I do the same, and I can almost touch the ache. Papa, I whisper, why are you crying? I'm remembering, he says. A war is something you never forget. Elephants never forget, I tell him. Then let's be elephants, he says. A soft rain falls as a bugler trumpets his notes up into the cold gray sky. We link our hands and bow our heads. So let's learn from Papa today. As proud and brave as he tried to be, he also knew how important it was to remember the price of war, lost friends, painful memories that are carried for life. That's why he wants his grandson to be an elephant and always remember the cost of war. And that's why we work so hard for peace with each other, with those around us, and with those around the world, so that our legacy, what people remember about us, is the peace and joy we gave the world.
Since our founding in 1881, members and friends' support of First Unitarian Society has been essential for our ongoing mission. Our Sunday assemblies, community celebrations, cultural enrichment, and work in social justice come to you with the hard work of our dedicated staff and volunteers. Your contributions will help assure the continuing work of First Unitarian Society. Give now at PayPal, the Give Plus app, or firstunitarian.org/donate. Thank you.
On Sundays when we gather, we take a few minutes to reflect on the joys, sorrows, and milestones of the human experience. We do this so that we stay in touch with our own humanity. We do this to remind ourselves of the value of a moment of stillness. And we do this so that no one among us is alone, either in celebrating joy or in facing the burdens of life. Members of our community have experienced a number of losses this past week. This morning, we mourn the death and celebrate the life of longtime FUS member Gary Monseth, who died this past Tuesday at the age of 78. Gary is the father of FUS member Andy Stiles. Survivors also include another daughter, a granddaughter, and 3 younger siblings. Gary was a commercial interior designer by trade and had his own business for 30 years, mostly designing shops and restaurants. He was also a creator of illustrations, a voracious reader, and later in life, he took up the tango. No memorial service is planned, but a family gathering is set for later today. We send our condolences to all who knew Gary. We also offer our condolences to FUS member Sandy Martin, whose mom, Faye Sample, died on Wednesday of complications from lung cancer. Faye was 85 years old and a longtime resident of Moorhead, Minnesota. Her life was filled with family celebrations, polka dancing, travel, and volunteer work in the Sunday school at her church and at the blood bank. As Sandy says, those who knew her will fondly remember her charm, easygoing spirit, independence, and kindness. Those she left behind will dearly miss her. We're also thinking this morning of FUS member Marcy Lessler, whose sister Janet Schneider died on October 28th. Janet had ovarian cancer and was 67 years old. Janet loved her family and friends and spending time with them at the cabin. She will be deeply missed by her husband, her 9 siblings, and many other family members. A celebration of Janet's life was held yesterday afternoon in Minneapolis. And this morning we think of FUS member Erica Bovey, whose beloved grandmother, Marlene Friedman Rollins, died a week ago today at the age of 83 in Henderson, Nebraska. Erica says her grandma loved everybody and regularly opened her home to strangers in need. And Erica says, she made sure we all knew how special we all are. She will be deeply missed by Erica, Justice, Hadassah, and Sergey. A memorial was held yesterday in Nebraska. If you are an FUS member who would like to send a card to the Bovies or to Marcy, Sandy, or Andy, you can find the addresses in the FUS membership directory or contact me or the FUS office. As we reflect on all these losses, we now take a moment of silence. We pause to remember that these are difficult times for all kinds of people and to remind ourselves to be gentle with ourselves and others. And we think with gratitude of all those who are taking on the big and small challenges of life and who are living lives of justice, service, and compassion. Let us now share a moment of silence. Our assembly theme this month is Holding History, and today we note that the Armistice of 1918 ended the horrendous slaughter of World War I, known at the time as the War to End All Wars. When the armistice was signed, exuberant joy erupted around the world, with bells ringing then and for many years at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. That practice slowly faded away, and especially in the United States, the observance of November 11th has become focused on military service. Today, as part of an effort organized by Veterans for Peace, we again ring bells for peace, and to remember the soldiers and civilians killed in warfare in every country. Let us now hear the ringing of the bells.
Shall be thrown. New York Times columnist David Brooks writes, "I've been thinking about the difference between the résumé virtues and the eulogy virtues. The résumé virtues are the ones you list on your resume, the skills that you bring to the job market and that contribute to external success. The eulogy virtues are deeper. They're the virtues that get talked about at your funeral, the ones that exist at the core of your being, whether you are kind, brave, honest, or faithful, what kind of relationships you formed. Most of us would say that the eulogy virtues are more important than the résumé virtues. But I confess that for long stretches of my life, I've spent more time thinking about the latter than the former. Our education system is certainly oriented around the résumé virtues more than the eulogy ones. Public conversation is, too. The self-help tips in magazines, the nonfiction bestsellers. Most of us have clearer strategies for how to achieve career success than we do for how to develop a profound character. We are called to fulfill both personae and must master the art of living forever within the tension between these two natures."
Thanks, Heather, for reading that. The theme for the month of November is holding history. Now, we know that history is contested ground here in the United States at the moment. Some commentators think arguments over teaching history affected the recent election. How do we teach history? What do we say about a very dark and unjust past? What does it mean to hold that history? In addition to that, we are clearly living during a pivotal moment in American history. Lots of people are asking how we move forward in such weird times. Things have been so weird, we've even invited a scholar of weird studies, J.F. Martel, to our assembly, and there he was talking to us about weird from Ottawa, Canada. And that's weird. I performed the wedding for my oldest daughter, who lives in St. Louis, Missouri, from my condo in Golden Valley. Had I met my future son-in-law? Sure. We had some dinners together online. That's weird. I finally met my son-in-law in St. Louis face-to-face on July 4th weekend, and I spoke that day here at FUS from St. Louis. That's weird. On January 6th, we had a coup attempt here in the U.S. that I watched in real time while I was attending a conference from beautiful downtown Golden Valley. The conference was taking place in Chicago. The notification that came across my screen as I was hearing about John Dewey's philosophy read, "The Capitol building has been breached." Now, that's weird. Holding that history, nearly 800,000 human beings have died of COVID in the past months here in the United States. 9,000 in the state of Minnesota, and more than 5 million in the world. All those lives gone, and we'll never know actually how many. That's weird. And we've been sustaining congregational community for 19 months, a period of time during which almost nobody in our congregational community even saw anybody else in the congregational community except on their computer screens. And that's weird. Shortages of all sorts, mass unemployment and a serious labor shortage. What's that? People attending national and international conferences without getting on an airplane. Lots of people working at home in their pajamas. It's all weird. Sit down sometime and just start making a list of what has been weird in these past months. And I invite you to try that. Make a list of the totally weird stuff that you never thought you would do since March of 2020. Go ahead and blow your own mind, because I'm warning you, it's weird. But here's the thing. Of course, we humans, we can deal with weird. We can roll with the punches and adjust. So, I'd say go ahead and pat yourself on the back. You've navigated one of the weirdest times in recent history. You did it. Go ahead and pat yourself on the back, because you know what? You navigated a time that was freaking weird. How do we hold all this weird history that's flying past us all the time? And I think maybe the distinction that David Brooks makes between resume virtues and eulogy virtues perhaps offers us a clue. But first, I want to read a poem from the St. Lucia poet Derek Walcott. I've read it before, but indulge me, I love it. I think it well summarizes the work all of us need to do on and for ourselves in this weird time. It's titled, Love After Love. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. And Walcott's invitation to love yourself, feast on your life, requires, I think, some self-reflection, some centering, some practice with accessing our own interiority. What David Brooks says, we don't learn in school much anymore. And think about those words of David Brooks. We're called to fulfill both personae, meaning resume values and eulogy values, and must master the art of living forever within the tension between these two natures. Resume virtues and eulogy virtues. And here's the thing, and this weird time we're living in only underlines this fact: you gotta do both all the time. And according to your age, you've probably got to do one or the other more than the other one. But this weird moment is calling all of us to both practical and high-minded virtues, to hold history and to be history, resume virtues and eulogy virtues, and living in that tension between them. Now, I'm lucky. I'm nearing retirement. At one time, I had 30-some-odd pages of resume. In the privileged worlds of academe, we call it a curriculum vitae, right? And you know what? I don't even bother to update my resume anymore because, hey, I'm over the top and I'm over the hill. I'm just about done with those resume things. And that's a good feeling. And it's weird. It's weird to be at the other end when another book published or another conference attended doesn't really matter anymore. It's weird. Two of my kids are looking at graduate school right now. They're living in their resume virtues. They have to do that because of the time of life they're living in. And it's weird for me to be experiencing that through them. But it's also clarifying. I'm at that point when I remember those lines from Shakespeare, "The evil that men do lives after them, the good is oft interred with their bones." Résumé, virtues, and eulogy, virtues. In the Western world, the virtues have been enumerated as 4 traditionally: wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. Wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. In Confucian tradition, the virtues have been enumerated as 3: harmony, propriety, and benevolence. Now, cultures name actions virtuous according to how pro-social they are. Stealing, killing, lying, these aren't good for keeping a community in harmony, but cooperation, what has come to be known in the political realm as the common good. Yes, I try to closely consider those traditional 4 virtues in my own life: wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. But for me, anyway, I need the calculus to be considerably more simple, because those are big things. So I usually ask myself, rather, how can I be a little bit better today than I was yesterday? Sure, the cynic in me will say, well, that's not too hard. You were a really insufferable jerk yesterday. But COVID weird just got too weird, and I freaked out, I tell myself. So it's okay, but I'll do better today. But that's when I try to remind myself of Derek Walcott's poem. You will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. The world's philosophy, theology, and religion are not for the faint of heart, to say the least. As a pragmatic Midwestern farmer, I try to boil those big concepts down, and I try to see the smoke and mirrors for what they are. With that in mind, I want to walk through my method of thinking about what is euphemistically called the absolute and those virtues. And those of you who have been part of my Coffee and Wisdom know that I always start with what we call facts. Facts. Now, already we're in contested space, because not all religions or philosophies say that facts exist. They say everything's an illusion. But I'm going to say that some facts do exist. Gravity, for example. Ignore it as you wish, but the fact is, in our normal lives here on the crust of this planet, things generally fall down rather than up. Gravity is enough of a fact as far as I'm concerned. Well, you may be saying, yeah, but sometimes facts are found through confused or mistaken scientific means, and actually they're not facts. Phlogiston is my favorite example of that. The 17th century scientists insisted that it had to exist, but it didn't. It was not ultimately a fact. It's true, not all facts are facts, and that does keep us humble, but there is something I think we can call reality, and that's facts. Then, well, let's think about death. Death is a fact in that we see here on the earth that living things do die. It's a fact. It's also a fact that dead bodies deteriorate. We have to do something about dead bodies lest they become biohazards. It's just a fact. But is there something more? A soul? A spirit? Tradition and intuition and experience tells us some things about that, but there are questions not yet answered. In the realm of belief, that's not a fact. And so I always distinguish between facts and truths. Facts are measurable. Truths are socially constructed ways of seeing facts. Truths are interpretations of facts. This is where the confusion begins. The human ego, the will, our intuition can tell us that a particular interpretation is a fact, even though we are utterly wrong about that. And that's when religions step in between the self and this misunderstanding. Many religions will say that God or Allah or Deus or whatever is fact and that all else is an illusion, which sounds kind of profound, but actually it only sounds profound. Calling something God and saying that God is a fact doesn't help distinguish between anything, actually. As a way out of the conundrum, revealed religions say, hey, I've got scriptures and God told us this. And again, that's not a way out of the conundrum. Having a book that says I'm God and I wrote this book just doesn't make it a fact. But wait, here we are living in these weird times with history flashing by us. What do we do? How do we act morally and ethically? Where are those virtues? And I always add intuition here that can go from the subjectivity back to facts, because we do know that, Einstein discovered his great theory on a streetcar, watching rain run down the windows. Sometimes intuition can find facts, but we don't know. We never know if that's actually true. Now, given the paucity of facts and the overwhelming number of truths, how do we find a moral compass? Lots of people have worked on this problem over the years. The ancient Greeks and Romans, for example, before Christianity came along and shut down those ideas. It's difficult for those of us who've grown up surrounded by monotheisms telling us do this and don't do that. But the ancients had gods that explained the origins of things. Where do mosquitoes come from? Where did the earth come from? Where's the difference between the soil and the water? That was the kind of gods that existed a long time ago. But they were about origins and not how to act morally in the world. It's easy to forget. What would Zeus do was not a productive question to ask for with moral guidance. Because, when was the last time you hurled a thunderbolt? It just doesn't work as a moral keystone. Philosophers, in the face of that, before monotheisms, philosophers like the Stoics started from the supposition that human beings are social animals. That's a good starting point because we can look around and see it. People live in groups. We're social animals. And it's observable, and it might even be a fact. From that foundation, then, they began to ask themselves some questions. What would a moral social animal do? Well, things that further sociability. That made sense to them. Cooperation must be a moral virtue. Not lying, stuff like that, must be good because we want to stay in a social relationship. Given that human beings are social animals, what would be wrong to do? Well, the things that don't further sociability, cheating, lying, hoarding, and stuff like that. These may or may not be facts, but they produce truths that function to tell us how to act as human beings in the world, then and now. Sometimes things are simpler than they at first appear, and the Stoics figured that out. That's when those four virtues began to make sense. Wisdom, justice, courage, moderation, they're all pro-social behaviors. It's what social animals ought to be doing. Social animals don't need gods to tell us that pro-social behavior is good. Those are the eulogy virtues, and they don't hurt your resume either. It's weird, but most of us didn't have a choice about who our parents were, speaking of ancestors, or who our ancestors were, or what our ancestors did. Yet all of us know that all of those things have everything to do with where and what we are, where and what and if we'll be having lunch today. It comes from a very long line of ancestors. And there are zero-sum games in our society, any society, such as the game of who goes to Ivy League schools or who gets advanced degrees. Some social classes hoard certain social advantages. And the pandemic revealed the yawning gulf between those who can afford to protect themselves and those who cannot afford to protect themselves. Those who can distinguish between truth and falsehood as well. What about those vaccines? Are they good or bad? We live in a deeply divided society because we live in a deeply unjust society. A society that needs people who practice maybe wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. Not bad things today either. The Roman writer and philosopher Seneca said that in order to be virtuous, the soul rust, as he called it, the soul rust must incessantly be scrubbed down and rubbed off. Seneca knew it wasn't a one-and-done thing to achieve those 4 virtues. Well, yeah, so how do we hold history? Nearly 2,000 years ago, the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius looked back thousands of years, and he had this to say: everything now is just as it was in the time of those whom we have buried. Everything now is just as it was in the time of those we have buried. And that's wisdom to realize that fact is one way, I think, too, that we can prepare to join those ancestors and think about that. They suffered too. They lived in weird times too. Yeah, it's always been weird. But it always is. And, a pandemic killed Marcus Aurelius too. Now, he said this to carry with you today. You may not have time to read, he said, but you do have time to check your arrogance. You do have time to live beyond mere pleasure and pain. You do have time to be superior to the lust for fame. You do have time to stop being vexed by stupid, ungrateful people. You even have time to care about those people. You even have time to care about those people. Eulogy virtues. They come from scrubbing the soul rust every darn day. So let's try to take the advice of Derek Walcott. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. So may it be. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. All of these we carry in our hearts and in our minds until we are together again. Thank you so much for joining us today. You can join in with our coffee hour at firstunitarian.org/coffee-hour. Join in and stay as long or as little as you like. Our closing words today are from that Derek Walcott poem, Love After Love. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. So may it be.